western Zimbabwe, one of the biggest man-made lakes in the world. Kariba was created by damming the Zambezi River late in the 1950s to provide hydroelectric power for the countries that are now Zimbabwe and Zambia. At the time, it represented mankind's greatest engineering achievement on the African continent. Never before had so much power been made available so cheaply. Hydroelectric power was the environmentalist's dream. There are no noxious gases released into the air, no radioactive waste to be dumped at sea. There was, however, another side to the coin. Over 2,000 square miles of the Middle Zambezi Valley, a vast wilderness occupied by a few scattered human settlements and thousands of game animals, were lost forever. In those days, it didn't seem to matter. The wilderness seemed inexhaustible, and so did the power from Kariba. But suddenly, in the 1970s, Kariba was no longer enough. Zimbabwe began to import power from Zambia. Today, development experts believe that Zimbabwe's industrial growth will create an extra demand for electric power of 7 or 8% each year. Major new generating sources will be essential if development is not to be held back. Several possible sources of this new power may be used over the next 2 decades. New thermal generating plant at Wankie in western Zimbabwe will make use of the country's vast reserves of coal. There are several potential hydroelectric sites on the Zambezi, all of which, according to power experts, will probably be needed by the end of the century if development goes according to plan. One of these sites is in the Devil's Gorge, downstream of the Victoria Falls. Another site, also between the Victoria Falls and Kariba, lies in the Mupata Gorge. Dams in both the Devil's and Mupata Gorges will create relatively small lakes in relatively barren areas without large game populations or valuable ecosystems. A third site lies downstream of Kariba in the Mupata Gorge. From an engineer's point of view, Mupata Gorge is a first-class hydroelectric dam site. It will be relatively easy and quick to build, and speed may be necessary if Zimbabwe's power requirements increase as fast as the forecasts seem to indicate. But the environmental price to be paid if the Mupata Gorge scheme is built will be tragically high. Because downstream of Kariba lies one of Africa's greatest remaining game and wilderness areas, the last unspoiled part of the Middle Zambezi Valley, sandwiched between the huge artificial lakes of Kariba to the west and Kaborabasa to the east. The vital heart of this wilderness lies in a series of floodplains at Mana pools, which have been laid down over thousands of years and support countless game animals through the worst of the Zambezi Valley dry season. The Mupata Gorge hydroelectric scheme will destroy every inch of the Mana Pool's floodplains, and its effect on the ecology of the entire Middle Zambezi Valley will be disastrous. Nobody could deny the need for more power in a young, vigorous country. Further industrial development will create employment and other benefits that will be felt throughout Zimbabwe. Nobody wants to stand in the way of this development or to elevate the needs of wildlife above those of the millions of people who will benefit. But other means of power generation are available, and Mana Pools is unique. This is why Zimbabwean conservationists are opposed to the damming of Mupata Gorge. At Mana Pools, the rains begin. Millions of gallons of life-giving water fall on the Middle Zambezi Valley after 7 long, weary months of scorching sun. For thousands of years, a slow, harmonious natural cycle has continued. And once again, the miracle happens. Mana Pools undergoes a rapturous explosion of young, vibrant life. Rich grasses grow tall. This is a time of revitalization for Mana Pools. Most of the game animals have dispersed into the huge wilderness of Jesse bush and Mapani woodlands that lie behind the floodplain, where in nature's own form of rotational grazing, they will make use of the available food and water for as long as they last. Is lying fallow. The secret pools, shrouded in their ebonies, figs and sausage trees, are almost deserted. Long woodlands of Acacia albida, interspersed with giant Natal mahoganies, stretch into a dim and misty distance. There are few animals to be seen, except for some waterbuck and impala, and a few elephant bulls that prefer to lead a life of quiet ease on the floodplain. The rains end in March or April, and the long dry season begins. Mana Pools is still deserted, but over the coming months the inland pans will dry out, and shortages of grazing and browsing will drive the elephant, buffalo, zebra and other animals back towards the river. By the end of the dry season, Mana Pools will become vital to their survival. If the Mupata Gorge scheme is built, all that will remain of Mana Pools will be the tips of the drowned acacias and mahoganies rising above the lake. The hinterland with its Jesse bush and Mapani scrub will escape, but the entire Zambezi floodplain will be lost. Before Kariba was built, a vast sweep of almost untouched wilderness extended from the Victoria Falls almost to the Indian Ocean. But then came Kariba, and then Kabora Bassa. 2/3 of the Middle Zambezi Valley was drowned. The character of the wilderness began to change from a useless, expendable commodity to a fragile, shrinking resource of swiftly increasing value and scarcity. Balancing the needs of development against the irreversible environmental damage that can result is sometimes a difficult and sensitive task. Zimbabwe is richly endowed with wild places, but the beauty of Mana Pools, both aesthetically and in its essential place in the ecology of the Zambezi Valley, stands out. The river is falling, the sandbanks beginning to re-emerge. The animals are coming back to Mana Pools as the hinterland becomes dry, harsh and inhospitable. Down on the floodplain, life goes on in Africa's timeless manner, with its cycle of birth and death, of predation and decay, and rebirth once again. Have killed and eaten. Now it's the turn of the hyena, jackal, vultures and marabou stalk. There are huge woodlands of these acacia albatas on the floodplain, perverse trees that grow their leaves in winter and shed them in summer. Each tree grows several hundred pounds of seed pods. Elephant are particularly fond of these pods and spend much of their time searching for them in the woodlands. And why wait for the pods to fall when you can help them along a little? The acacias will provide this fellow with a large part of his dry season diet, and Mana's lush grazing will give him the rest. In his way, the elephant has the power to modify his surroundings. Once his ranges were so vast that the loss of a few trees here and there was of little consequence. Today, the destruction of woodland by elephant, compressed into tiny fractions of their old territories, causes serious problems for wildlife managers. Once, man could modify his surroundings, and nature could cope. But like the elephant, mankind has also become compressed by fast-growing populations, and his needs grown urgent. And like the elephant again, the damage he can do is vast. He can change his surroundings to an extent unimaginable only a few decades ago. And whether this change and destruction is in his own best interests is the most urgent question we face today. The dry season wears on. Even on the Mana Pool's floodplain, grazing is becoming scarcer. Just what will we lose if Mana Pools is destroyed? There have been attempts to place a cash value on the wilderness. In today's circumstances, it's tempting to try and do so. But is mere economic value all we are concerned with? We have progressed a little since Kariba was built. Today, the assessment of the environmental and ecological impact of major development schemes has become common practice. Even so, nobody as yet can forecast the effect of another dam on the Zambezi. All we can say is that whereas the impact of the Batoka and Devil's Gorge schemes seem likely to be small, that of Mupata Gorge will be disastrous. There will be nothing left of the Middle Zambezi Valley in its natural state. The delicate balance of a beautiful, fragile ecosystem will be destroyed. And biologists believe that half the big game animals in the area, elephant and buffalo in particular, will be lost. What is needed most of all is thought, genuine, deep, and careful consideration before any final decisions are taken and the Zambezi dammed at Mupata Gorge. Mana Pools rivals anything to be seen in Africa. Today, Zimbabwe has the choice to keep it or to destroy it. Once gone, mana pools can never be brought back, and future generations of Zimbabweans may not thank us for destroying their heritage. This is when the animals need mana pools. The rest of the valley is bare, scorched and dry. It's only on the mana floodplain that the grazing and browsing will last until once again the rains begin. Not people versus wildlife, but the Mupata scheme against Patoka and Devil's Gorges, against thermal power, and weighed, most of all, against the value of mana pools. Not preservation against progress, but conservation in its truest sense, the wise use of our resources. Mana pools ranks high among those resources, and the question we must ask ourselves is, must mana die?